single night erased America's Black Wall Street, and history tried to bury the truth. It was a warm evening in late May of 1921, the kind of night when the streets of Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, glowed with life. The neighborhood was alive with jazz, laughter spilling from the Dreamland Theater, families strolling in their Sunday best, and shopkeepers sweeping in front of their thriving businesses. They called it Black Wall Street, a rare place of wealth and pride in a segregated America. Doctors, lawyers, bankers, business owners, all African American, all proving what was possible when hope refused to bow to hate. But prosperity attracts attention, and not always the good kind. Jealous eyes watched Greenwood, eyes filled with suspicion, with anger, with hate. And it was those eyes that, on a seemingly ordinary day, set into motion a chain of events that would turn Greenwood into a nightmare. It began with something small, almost trivial. A young black man named Dick Rowland, just 19, entered the Drexel building downtown. He worked as a shoe shiner and often used the building's elevator to reach the segregated restroom. On this day, inside that elevator, he encountered a young white woman named Sarah Page, the operator. No one knows what truly happened. Some say he tripped and grabbed her arm. Others say she screamed when startled. But by the time the doors opened, Sarah was upset, and Rowland fled. Whispers spread quickly. Rumors twisted into accusations. The local newspaper, the Tulsa Tribune, fanned the flames, printing a headline that implied Rowland had attacked her. And in a city already poisoned by racial tension, that headline was like striking a match in a room soaked with gasoline. By evening, an angry white crowd began forming outside the courthouse where Rowland was held. They demanded he be handed over. They wanted blood. They wanted a lynching. Officials swore he'd be protected, but no one in Greenwood trusted those promises. They'd seen how this story usually ended. A group of armed black men, many veterans of World War I, marched to the courthouse. They weren't looking for a fight. They only wanted to make sure Rowland wasn't dragged out and killed. The sheriff told them everything was under control, so they left. But later, when the crowd outside had swelled to hundreds, they returned. This time, they came in greater numbers, rifles on their shoulders, determination in their eyes. Picture the courthouse steps that night, lanterns flickering, cigarettes glowing in the dark, two groups staring each other down. On one side, hundreds of furious white men. On the other, a small group of armed black defenders. The silence was electric, heavy, dangerous, and then the sound no one could take back. A gunshot. Some say it was an accident, others believe it was deliberate. But when that first shot rang out, the night erupted into chaos. Gunfire cracked through the air. Screams echoed off the stone walls. Men fell where they stood. And when the smoke cleared, bodies lay on the ground. The mob was no longer just a mob. It was an army. Greenwood was their target. By midnight, the mob numbered in the thousands. They stormed into the city, looting stores, setting businesses ablaze, dragging families from their homes. Many carried shotguns and pistols. Some even had machine guns. Even worse, local officials deputized members of the mob, giving them badges and permission to round up black citizens. The protectors had become the attackers. Greenwood fought back. Shots cracked from windows and rooftops, but the defenders were hopelessly outnumbered. Block by block, the mob burned everything. Witnesses said the night sky glowed red, the fire so bright it could be seen for miles. And then came the unthinkable. Airplanes appeared overhead, private planes flown by white men circling low. They dropped incendiary bombs and fired rifles at people fleeing below. Survivors later described the terror of bullets raining from the sky, the roar of engines as their community burned beneath them. Greenwood wasn't just attacked on the ground, it was bombed from above. Families ran in every direction, clutching children, dragging what little they could carry. Mothers screamed for missing sons. Fathers searched for daughters swallowed by the chaos. Some hid in ditches, others in fields, anywhere that might keep them alive until daylight. When the sun rose, Greenwood was gone, 35 blocks reduced to ash. Nearly 10,000 black residents left homeless. The death toll remains uncertain. Some say around 300. Others believe many more were murdered and buried in mass graves that remain hidden to this day. And Dick Rowland, the young man whose elevator ride had sparked it all, the charges against him were dropped. Sarah Page never pressed charges. The so-called crime that justified the massacre had never even happened. In the days that followed, the nightmare deepened. Survivors were rounded up and forced into camps. Families that had spent decades building wealth and stability were left with nothing but ruins. Insurance companies refused to pay claims. City officials ignored the destruction. And for decades, the massacre itself was buried, not just the bodies, but the memory. It disappeared from textbooks, from classrooms, from the nation's conscience. But survivors remembered, children who watched their parents gunned down, mothers who carried their babies through fire, veterans who had fought for their country only to be hunted in their own streets. They carried every scream, every flame, every gunshot in their hearts. Years later, some of them would tell their stories, voices trembling, eyes filling with tears as they described the night their world ended. They spoke of neighbors who vanished and never returned, of streets once alive with music, now drowned in silence. Those words brought Greenwood back to life, if only for a moment, reminding the world that behind the numbers were real people, real dreams, real futures turned to ash. A century later, the story has resurfaced. Greenwood is remembered, studied, honored, but scars remain, etched into the ground where thriving businesses once stood, carried in the bloodlines of those who survived. And when you walk through Tulsa today, you can feel it, the weight of silence, the echo of lives stolen. The Tulsa Race Massacre isn't just history, it's a warning, a reminder of what happens when hate is left unchecked, when rumors ignite into rage, when justice fails. And the most haunting part? It began with something so small, a boy in an elevator, a scream, a rumor, and from that, an entire community burned to the ground.